Hi there and welcome to another one of my videos. Today I wanted to talk about something that I have noticed during my studies at the university. I'm about to start my final year of medical school now, and I usually notice something after the exams that I wanted to look into. Like, have you ever walked out of a final exam and the adrenaline is still kind of pumping and then nothing? You're done, you maybe even crushed it, or at least you crushed it as good as you could. So you should be feeling pretty amazing afterwards, right? But instead, in the following days, you almost feel kind of empty. Like normally you would be studying during this time and studying hard, and now you have nothing to do. And it's weird because it's almost as if somewhere in the back of your mind you're almost feeling guilty for not studying anymore. Even though there's nothing left to study, you just finished your final exams. Like, how deranged is that to be finished with your exams and then feeling like that afterwards? I thought that this was kind of peculiar that we have this sensation, and I wanted to take this video or use this video as an opportunity to unpack what is actually happening when we feel like this. I first noticed this especially in second year and also a bit in third year, that after finishing a brutal 2 week stretch of finals, I passed and I actually did pretty well. But the following days I wondered why I was not happy enough. Like, don't get me wrong, I was super happy about my results, but I thought I would be more at peace or that I would feel different afterwards. Like, I had no more alarms to set, I had no flashcards to review, I had no past papers to look at. I should just be enjoying my free time, but the having nothing to do almost became the issue. And it turns out that this feeling or this sensation or whatever you want to call it is actually pretty common, and it has been given a name, I don't know by who, but it has been given the name of post-exam emptiness. And what it is basically it's a cocktail of some physiological and also some psychological factors that are going on behind the scenes. You've been running on cortisol and caffeine for a few weeks, and your body adapted to this high stress, high output mode, and now suddenly the structure disappears. And unfortunately, the brain cannot shut off this fight or flight just on command. But this now also only explains the physiological part, and all of this post-exam emptiness goes a bit deeper than just being stress. This feeling of emptiness has to do with something called goal disengagement. There's this theory in psychology that when we've spent a long time pursuing a single goal, it almost becomes part of our identity, especially if this goal required intense sacrifice or intense effort, something that is pretty common for medical school, but it could also be something else. It doesn't have to be medical school at all. So then in the end, when the goal is finally achieved, when it's over, we experience a kind of emotional whiplash. And our brains have not been able to figure out yet, or we haven't given them time to figure out what's next. And this is what is known as goal disengagement difficulty. You weren't just studying for finals, you were living as someone studying for their finals. Once the goal is gone, it's like a part of you also disappears with it. And this kind of vacuum that appears afterwards is what can feel slightly uncomfortable for people. Now, to be fair, uncomfortable is maybe also not the right word for this phenomena. I mean, let's also stay grounded here. It's not something difficult to go through. People go through difficult things all the time, and not having exams is not something difficult. It would be kind of pathetic to be complaining about that. Another component of this whole whatever it is the guilt. So even though you've definitely earned the rest, there's this little voice inside your head that is kind of telling you that you're being lazy, or that you could already be reviewing for next semester, or that there are other people are probably working already, and so on and so on. And I believe that a lot of this part has to do with the kind of internalized productivity culture. Medicine selects for and kind of trains people to be, or trains their medical students to be, high achievers. And rest isn't really the most highly valued skill for a medical student, at least not traditionally, even though now the culture seems to be changing. And because so much of your self-worth has kind of been tied to performance, stopping feels or can feel like failure, even though the race is over. The thing is, I'm also not trying to make some big psychological thing out of this either. I just want to convey that if you have experienced this, there's not necessarily something wrong with you. And feeling this way also doesn't mean that you're in any way ungrateful for having finished your exams or getting the results that you got. In short, it just means that your brain and your body, they need some time in order to recalibrate. And I'm going to mention a few things that I think can help, or that I think you might be able to do in order to recalibrate if this sensation or this ever happens to you. The first advice I have is to plan rest like a goal. By literally making rest a goal, it isn't, or rest doesn't just become the absence of work, but it becomes active recovery. So you can schedule a few days or some days where rest is literally the mission of the day, and like that there is no guilt allowed for not doing something. Secondly, I would say shift and don't stop completely. You don't need to jump into heavy academics again. I think you've done enough of that already. But find something that is still counts as an activity and that allows you to set a new goal. This could be something like reading a book, or learning a new recipe, or organizing your phone or your computer, which always seem to end up being a mess in the end. At least for me personally, my digital life always becomes in some way just a mess with unorganized folders. So I like to take the time after exams to organize my computer. And whatever it is that you choose to kind of shift into, this is going to give your brain something to hold on to. My third piece of advice would be to try and connect with people. Now this is a very important one, obviously. We're very social creatures, and you've probably spent weeks in isolation, even if it's not complete isolation. It's pretty optimal if you could take this opportunity to reintroduce yourself properly to the world, talk and be with people, especially people that don't care whatever your exam results might have been, and like that you can kind of detense a bit as well. Now my fourth piece of advice, and my last one, would be to just move on. This is not something that I believe most people would give as advice, especially now during our time, and maybe I'm wrong to do so, but I feel we are often told we need to reflect and analyze everything, interpret it, maybe even journal about it. And there might be room for some of these things, and I think they can be very useful, but I don't think they help a lot in this scenario. You can also just decide to move on. We are not just victims of our circumstances, and we have quite a bit of autonomy over ourselves, and I think it would be a shame to not use this autonomy that we have. I believe that you are strong enough and you are able to govern yourself enough so that you can make a conscious and effective decision to move on as well. Now, in conclusion, if you're feeling empty after a heavy exam period, I want to let you know that you're not the first one to feel like that. You certainly won't be the last, and you're also not a failure, no matter what the exam results were. You just had to go through a hard exam period, and there are some psychological and some physiological processes occurring that end up giving you this sense of post-exam emptiness. Also, I think that a healthy dose of pessimism can sometimes help as a relief as well. So I would like to remind you that you also have future exams to probably look forward to as well. Don't worry, they're coming. But for now, it's fine to just chill and hang out with your friends. Thank you very much for your attention and for making it to the end of this video. And you can always like and subscribe. And also feel free to comment literally whatever. I will read the comment. And I'll see you next time. Bye.